Sometimes I feel like a marvelous child. Sometimes I feel like a marvelous child. A long way from home. A long way from home.
Recently, I found something that most people take for granted: their history, who they are, and where they come from. I was told I had a history, but that story wasn't true. I have no photographs of myself as an infant. None of those in the hospital photographs, the ones of babies with their red and wrinkled faces. Everybody loves to say how beautiful they are, but you know what they're really thinking is, things can only get better from here. I have no photographs because when I was 1.5 years old, I was adopted. For whatever unknown reasons, I was never given a true history of my life. And I never did find out why they didn't tell me I was adopted. Were they afraid I wouldn't love them? Or that I would run away to find my natural parents? All of these fears for them were real. Who can say they were wrong?
I was born at the Ideal Maternity Home on February 1st, 1943. I was almost 2 years old when I was taken home by my new parents. My mother always loved to tell me about the day that she and my father went to the Ideal Maternity Home. It was January 12th, 1945, and they were going there with the intention of adopting a baby girl. They made the trip by taxi and arrived around noon. They were met by Mr. Young, who apologized for his wife Lila, who was ill and unable to greet them. Mr. Young then took them to the front office where they were to fill out some papers. After that, he took them to a room where they saw little boys playing, and they counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when they entered the room, 8 boys ran to them. I got there first. And I held on to the woman who would become my mother. Then Mr. Young took Mother and Dad to see 85 other children. But Mother decided not to look at the other babies. They told Mr. Young that they had decided to take me, the 2-year-old. I was always aware of being an adopted child from an early age, and always knew my birth mother, who she was, and where to find her. Even knowing this, I never had the desire to contact my birth mother, for I was more than satisfied with my adoptive parents, my parents.
I am a survivor of the Ideal Maternity Home. I was born March 20th, 1941. I was 6 months old when my parents came to the home and chose me. I always knew that I had been adopted, and most of the time it never really bothered me, except when I was extremely unhappy or when someone called me a bastard. When that happened, I wanted my real mom. I really hated being called a bastard.
After meeting me, Mother agreed with Father, and the decision was made to apply to adopt me. The application was processed, and one night, while Father was en route to Halifax from the South Shore, he stopped at the home to pick me up. I was released from the Ideal Maternity Home at 11 months of age, with a little more on me than diapers and an undershirt. Father said he stopped at a store in East Chester and purchased some home-knit clothing for me to wear on the 3-hour journey to Halifax. He picked up a sailor hitchhiking back to his ship. The sailor was assigned the task of holding me for the journey. I had been lucky. I had been adopted. I had a family, and I was home. Only years later would it be learned that many babies never did get that privilege, and those who did not would become known as butterbox babies, after the boxes used for their coffins. Father led me to believe that the province of Nova Scotia paid a support subsidy on babies up to a year old, and that at the ideal maternity home, after that subsidy was dropped, it was frequently the case that the baby disappeared. This was apparently the source of the rumors that had created the investigation at the home in the first place. Since I was 11 months old at the time of my adoption, I think perhaps I was very lucky indeed.
I was born at the Ideal Maternity Home in East Chester, Nova Scotia on February the 9th, 1941. I remained there until 7 months later, when I was rescued by my mother, when she came to the home to accompany her best friend who was going to adopt a child from there. Now, my mother had never actually discussed adoption, though my father did say to her as she left for the day, "Don't do anything foolish." While she was waiting for her friend to complete the formalities, Mum wandered round the place, looking at all the other babies. When she came to my cot, I reached out to her and she picked me up, fell in love with me, took me home that very same day, and for the last 57 years, her love for me has always been there. Apparently, once on the road back to Miragamish, she started to panic. But strengthened by the other woman who came on the trip, she regained her courage. When she arrived home and walked into the house, Dad looked at her with me in her arms and said, "What have you got there?" She said, "It's a little boy," to which he replied, "What a little darling." So he opened his arms, wrapped me in them, and I was home. They soon began adoption proceedings, and I was to grow up as part of the Murdock family. There was my sister Bonnie, their own child, and all the close-knit Murdock family clan, consisting of my father's brothers, sisters, and their many children. I never once felt that I didn't belong. Because of all their love, I am the person that I am today. Years later, when my son Andrew was born with Down syndrome, I had an opportunity to relive this same acceptance and unconditional love that I had received from my mother and my father and the whole Murdock family. Andrew was born in London, England, and when he was 6 months old, he only weighed 10 pounds. It was not clear at this point whether he would survive, so we decided to take Andrew to Nova Scotia to visit his grandparents. When my father saw him at the airport for the first time, he simply said, "Well, there's not much to him, is there?" So he picked him up, held him close, and Andrew was also home. For the 3 weeks we stayed in Nova Scotia, Andrew spent most of his time lying on my father's chest, held there securely by his strong and tender hands. He sang to Andrew, he talked to him, he played with him, and when we went back to London, Andrew started to gain real weight for the first time since he was born. It was now pretty clear that Andrew had decided to stay, and he is today a very healthy, able, strong, fit, loving young man of 22, a young man of whom I am justifiably proud. It's true what they say about the circle of love. It does go round. It does make miracles happen. And it goes round over and over and over again. It was my mother who encouraged me to follow my love of music. It was my mother who sang to me, and who, when she sang to me, made me feel so loved and so special. Was it a bad beginning, my beginning? Yes, it was. But what a wonderful journey since then.
Who are you now? Now that you're mine, are you something more than you were before? Are you warmer in the rain? Are you stronger for my touch? Am I giving too little by my loving you too much. How is the view, sunny and green? How do you compare it to the views you've seen? I know I am better and braver and surer too. But you, are you now? Who are you now? Are you someone better for my